Hey peeps! So here is my October 2024 TBR. These are the books that I want to finish reading in the month of October. It is my favorite time of year, as it is for so many of us. And I'm really wanting to get a lot read this month, as well as I'm feeling very creatively inspired when it comes to what I do for a living. And so I'm feeling I just want to hole up in my little apartment and read and create workshops and talk about tarot and talk about all the things that I love and just be in that beautiful space whilst drinking delicious pumpkin chai. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the feeling this month. So I have a few books here that I really do want to finish. I tried not to overextend myself in what I think I can read, though, because it's very easy, to get really to just think you can do more than you can do, right? To think you can do more than you can do, especially when there are so many great books to read. So the first book on my TBR list is Lucy Undying, a Dracula novel by Kiersten White. This is a retelling of Lucy Westenra's side of the story. It is a sapphic, it features a sapphic romance. And we're watching these two characters revolve around each other. There are a lot of secrets. And so far, this is one that I have started. I'm recording on the 3rd and I'm almost 100 pages in. It's a larger book. But so far, I'm really enjoying this. And, in the synopsis, we're talking about Lucy really becoming herself. We're experiencing watching her become herself and what it means for her to become a vampire, to attempt to find Dracula, to deal with the love that she feels for Mina. And then we have another character coming in here, another protagonist within the storyline named Iris. And we're watching Lucy possibly fall in love with her. So it's really good so far. This cover is everything. It's giving me all the October Halloween vampire werewolf vibes. So a large reason, I'm not gonna lie, why I picked this book has to do with this gorgeous cover, but so far the writing style is matching the beauty of the cover itself for sure. So the next book on my TBR is My Darling Dreadful Thing by Johanna van Veen. This is a ghost story, I believe. I'm going to read the back with you. And I will say again, a lot of the reason why I chose this has to do with how beautiful this cover is. I kind of have it on display over in my bookshelves in my little area where I like to watch my TV so that I can look at how gorgeous the cover is, because it is a really beautiful cover. So this is more like gothic than it is straight up horror, but it's the perfect month for it, right? So the synopsis says, if the dead can wake and walk among us, how can we know what is truly real? Ruth Speckman has a spirit companion only she can see. Ruth, strange, corpse-like, and dead for centuries, is the light of Ruth's life. That is, until the wealthy young widow Agnes Knoop visits one of Ruth's backroom seances and the two strike up a connection. Soon Ruth is whisked away to the crumbling estate Agnes inherited upon the death of her husband, where an ill woman haunts the halls, strange smells drift through the air at night, and mysterious stone statues reside in the family chapel. Something dreadful festers in the manor, but still the attraction between Ruth and Agnes is undeniable. Then someone is murdered. Poor and alone, and with a history of hysterics, Ruth is the obvious culprit. With her sanity and innocence in question, she'll have to prove who or what is at fault, or lose everything she holds dear. So I've heard some good things about this from all the booktubers that I love to watch, and I'm very excited to see if I enjoy it as much as I've heard. So this is also on my TBR list this month. Then, as you guys know, I've talked about, I really love Violet Prynne, and she talks about Riley Sager's work a lot on her YouTube channel, which, if I remember, I'll put the link down below. Not that you need me to share it, but just so you can check her out if you haven't. I tend to find that I enjoy similar books to the ones that she talks about on her channel. So I was very intrigued because she's talked about how much she loves this author. However, the storyline of Sager's newest book is not necessarily one that I want to dive into. And so I wanted to go with an older novel by this author and see if I like their style before I go into a subject matter that may be a bit heavy for me, which it sounds a bit like the newest book by this author maybe. So I'm excited to read this as well because I think it's in Maine, if I remember right. And I live in New Hampshire, but I have a lifelong love affair with the state of Maine, especially the coastline. So it says, a gothic house of horrors. It carries you along effortlessly before delivering a symphony of twists so shocking it took my breath away. At 17, Lenora Hope hung her sister with a rope. Now reduced to a schoolyard chant, the Hope family murder shocked the Maine coast one bloody night in 1929. While most people assume 17-year-old Lenora was responsible, the police were never able to prove it. Other than her denial after the killings, she has never spoken publicly about that night, nor has she set foot outside Hope's End, the cliffside mansion where the massacre occurred. It's now 1983, and home health aide Kit McDeer arrives at a decaying Hope's End to care for Lenora after her previous nurse fled in the middle of the night. In her 70s and confined to a wheelchair, Lenora was rendered mute by a series of strokes and can only communicate with Kit by tapping out sentences on an old typewriter. One night, Lenora uses it to make a tantalizing offer. I want to tell you everything. As Kit helps Lenora write about the events leading to the Hope family massacre, it becomes clear there's more to the tale than people know. But when new details about her predecessor's departure come to light, Kit starts to suspect Lenora might not be telling the complete truth, and that the seemingly harmless woman in her care could be far more dangerous than she first thought. So yeah, this one looks really good. I love the cover as well. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I'm really excited to read this one. This might be the one I read next after. I just lifted that upside down. Sorry guys, I'm getting over being sick, so I'm still a little bit spacey. After I finish Lucy Undying, this may be the next one on my list. Okay, so next I have I'm a Vampire Girl, but this is supposed to be a love affair story between a vampire and a werewolf. It's supposed to be very kitschy and kind of tongue-in-cheek and cute, but also a little bit sexy, I've heard. Heard some good reviews on BookTube, so I'm excited to try out this one. This is called Bride by Ali Hazelwood. A vampire bride and an alpha werewolf form a dangerous alliance in this enthralling new paranormal romance. So we've had horror and gothic horror, and now we have paranormal romance because it's October, right? Misery Lark, daughter of a powerful vampire councilman, is an outcast. Her days of living anonymously among the humans are over. She has been called upon to uphold an alliance between the vampires and their mortal enemies, the Wares. Wares are ruthless and unpredictable, and their alpha, Lo Morland, is no exception. He rules his pack with absolute authority, but not without justice or feeling. It's clear from the way he tracks Misery's every movement that he doesn't trust her. If only he knew how right he was. Misery has her own reasons to agree to this marriage of convenience, reasons that have nothing to do with politics or alliances and everything to do with the only thing she's ever cared about. And she's willing to do whatever it takes to get back what's hers. So I've heard that it's very like tongue-in-cheek and kind of like pokes fun at the genre whilst also like being the genre itself. So I'm intrigued to see this, and I figured I would save this for those nights when I want to read something a little bit lighter content-wise, and I think that that's going to be a good fit for that. Okay, so next on the list is Olive Blake's Masters of Death. I picked this up at Barnes & Noble's earlier in the summer. Excuse me, I think it was actually in August that I picked this up. But I'm very intrigued by the storyline. I have a few Olive Blake books in my collection, but I have not been drawn to read them yet. And so I thought this would be a nice way to kind of segue into their work and see if I like it. So let's see. The back says, there is a game that the immortals play. There's only one rule: don't lose. Viola Merrick is a struggling real estate agent and a vampire, but her biggest problem currently is that the house she needs to sell is haunted. The ghost haunting the mansion has been murdered, and until he can solve the mystery of how he died, he refuses to move on. Fox Demora is a medium, and though he is also most definitely a shameless fraud, he isn't entirely without his uses, seeing as he's actually the godson of death. When Viola seeks out Fox to help her with the ghost infestation, he becomes inextricably involved in a quest that neither he nor Vi expects or wants. But with the help of an unruly poltergeist, a demonic personal trainer, a sharp-voiced angel, a love-stricken reaper, and a few mindfulness-practicing creatures, Vi and Fox soon discover that the difference between a mysterious lost love and an annoying dead body isn't nearly as distinct as they thought. So I thought that sounded kind of sweet. It's also, you know, there are vampires, there's mediums, there's there's death, the Grim Reaper, I'm here for it. So this one I'm excited to read from a perspective of like, I think when I want to have that kind of cozy, sweet feeling when it comes to this genre, if that's possible, then I think this is going to be the one that I go with. So next on the list is Devil House by John Darnielle. And I've heard some interesting things about this one. And I love haunted house stories. I just do. I grew up in a very, very, very old house that used to be an inn. It was very alive. There were a lot of spirits in that house. And so I do believe in haunted houses. I love them and I'm fascinated by them. Whether the force is malevolent or more compassionate and kind, I just love the idea of houses being alive. So I've heard some different things about this. We're going to see. I'm intrigued to read it. So here is the storyline synopsis. Gage Chandler is descended from kings. That's what his mother always told him when he was a child. Years later, he is a true crime writer with one grisly success and a movie adaptation to his name, along with a series of subsequent less notable efforts. But now he's being offered the chance for the big break, to move into the house where a pair of briefly notorious murders occurred, apparently the work of disaffected teens during the satanic panic in the 1980s. Chandler finds himself in Milpitas, I apologize if I mispronounced that, California, a small town whose name rings a bell. His closest childhood friend lived there once upon a time. He begins his research into the murders with diligence and enthusiasm, but soon the story leads him into a puzzle he never expected, back into his own work and what it means, back to the very core of what he does and who he is. Devil House is John Darnielle's most ambitious work yet, a book that blurs the line between fact and fiction, that combines daring formal experimentation with a spellbinding tale of crime, writing, memory, and artistic obsession. And this cover is everything. So I'm intrigued to read that one. That one, if I've got to trim the fat off this list, would probably be one that I might wait on, but also like, it's kind of perfect for Halloween, right? So I think I might end the month reading that book. So this next book was recommended to me by a very dear friend and sister in tarot. And so this is on my list this month because I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be like Bride. It's going to be a little playful, but also it's going to give me spooky vibes too. So this is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because I think it's very popular. Lots of people know about it, but I will read you the synopsis, and I will say I think this is going to be like a mid-month read for me, kind of like moving into Halloween vibes. So, Patricia Campbell's life has never felt smaller. Her husband is a workaholic, her teenage kids have their own lives, her senile mother-in-law needs constant care, and she's always a step behind on her endless to-do list. The only thing keeping her sane is her book club, a close-knit group of Charleston women united by their love of true crime. At these meetings, they're as likely to talk about the Manson family as they are about their own families. One evening after book club, Patricia is viciously attacked by an elderly neighbor, bringing the neighbor's handsome nephew, James Harris, into her life. James is well-traveled and well-read, and he makes Patricia feel things she hasn't felt in years. But when children on the other side of town go missing, their deaths written off by local police, Patricia has no reason to believe James Harris is more of a Bundy than a Brad Pitt. The real problem, James is a monster of a different kind, and Patricia has already invited him in. Little by little, James will insinuate himself into Patricia's life and try to take everything she took for granted, including the book club. But she won't surrender without a fight in this blood-soaked tale of neighborly kindness gone wrong. So I'm very intrigued to read this one, and it's kind of funny. When my dear friend recommended this to me, we just moved into this apartment, my son and I, and we had gone to the library, and there's a book club there. Like, we live in this very sweet rural little town, and I was like, for the first time in my life, I was like, maybe I'll join the book club. It'll give me a reason to get out of the house, and I don't know, maybe I'll meet some interesting people who aren't kind of in my line of work, and so will get me out of my comfort zone. So then when she recommended this book, and the title was The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, I was like, I have to read this book. So I'm very excited to read this from the perspective of, I think it's going to be kind of funny. I think it's going to be kind of sweet. But I've never read Grady Hendrix before, so I also don't have any idea. This is just like the feeling I get. Maybe sweet is the wrong word, but I think it's going to be something where I'm probably going to laugh as much as I'm going to be, you know, involved in the horror theme or the vampire theme. So we'll see. I haven't watched a lot on BookTube about it because I kind of don't want to have a preconceived idea or expectation of if I'm going to like it or not. Kind of just want to see what happens. So very intrigued to read this one. That's my plan mid-month to read that one. So this is my October TBR. I am being ambitious for myself with my work schedule and my son's schedule, but I feel like I love October. I love Halloween. I love Samhain. It's the best time of the year. So I need to, you know, take a nice big bite out of my book collection and try to read as much as possible, especially on my favorite, you know, vampire, gothic, horror, and horror themes. So let me know what you guys are going to try to read this month in the comment section down below. I am sending you guys, as always, oceans of love, and I will, of course, see you in the next video.